Joe Biden's wife, Jill Biden, was recently speaking to NPR, and she was asked some tough questions to NPR's credit. One of those questions had to do with Biden's handling of the Anita Hill hearings. Anita Hill famously accused Justice Clarence Thomas of sexual harassment, and the way that whole hearing went down and the way the all-male senators questioned her is now weighing heavily on Biden's campaign to be president. And so of course, they're gonna get questions about it. And what Jill Biden had to say, in my opinion, was problematic. Take a look.
Well, I watched the hearings like most other Americans. And so, I mean, Joe said, as I did, we believed Anita Hill. He voted against Clarence Thomas. I mean, he's called Anita Hill. They've spoken. He apologized for the way the hearings were run. And so now it's time to move on.
There's one person who gets to decide when it's time to move on. And that one person is Anita Hill, period. Joe Biden's wife doesn't get to decide that. Joe Biden doesn't get to decide that. And this whole thing about like he called her and apologized. Yeah, he called her and apologized after he got criticized for not calling her directly and apologizing to her directly after he had already announced that he was gonna run. That's an issue, right?
Yeah, I want to tag on to the first thing that you said though, that Anita Hill is the only person who should be able to decide whether we should move on. But also right there in her answer, she said, we believed Anita Hill. I believed her, he believed her, we believed her. This man is still a sitting Supreme Court justice. If you believe that he sexually harassed an employee and he is a justice in the highest court in our lands, no one should ever move on. And you cannot have those two things come out of your mouth. You cannot say, this man is in charge of all the laws in our land, and I think he's a sexually harasser.
Yeah.
Like down to the point where I believe her, so I think he put a pubic hair on her can of Coca-Cola. But we should move on.
Right.
That is the most ridiculous thing I've heard all day.
I believe her when she alleges that he referenced porn and male genitalia, made her uncomfortable in the workplace over and over again. I believe her, but I think it's time to move on. I mean,
But it's also the first time society is even dealing with this thing. Like they didn't really talk about it at the time of the trial. There wasn't this huge uproar of like, look at the way that Anita Hill was attacked. She was almost put on the defense in her own, hearing. And so it's like, well, move on. We just started.
That's
like this conversation
point, yeah.
literally started, concerning Biden's potential presidency, and now all of a sudden saying move on is just like so premature for a cycle that hasn't been able to evolve, for a woman who hasn't fully been able to heal. I mean, she's said that she's never been satisfied with the way he's apologized. So it's interesting. I think that's a technique that Donald Trump has brought into American politics very much. Is people saying not apologizing and not dealing with it, and then all of a sudden saying, well, I mean, how are you still talking about that? Like, how can you, what's just so bizarre to me, just even watching this whole, all these 2020 nominees and a lot of them who have made mistakes in their past, is that, think about this, when you're a kid and you hit your brother or something and your mom says apologize, everybody in the room knows you're not sorry.
Right.
But to move on, you gotta just say it.
Yeah, just get it out of the way.
Why aren't they just choosing to fake it? Instead, they're choosing to double down on decisions that everybody around them is saying, hey, this is bad. And instead of just faking a sorry and moving on, they're not.
Well,
that's so weird to me. Just on just be evil, I guess. I don't know.
I like that you brought that up. I like that you brought that up because you're right in that every interview that I've seen so far where Biden is asked about this, he gets very defensive and he refuses to take ownership. And I want to provide my favorite example of this. This was a fairly recent interview that Biden did, and here's what he had to say about his handling of the Anita Hill hearings. Take a look.
I wish I could have done more to prevent those questions the way they asked them. I hope my colleagues learned from that. My biggest regret was I didn't know how I could shut you off if you were a senator and you were attacking Anita Hill's character. Under the Senate rules, I can't gavel you down and say you can't ask that question, although I tried. And so what happened was she got victimized again during the process.
It seems like you get it now versus back in 91.
Well, I think I got it in 91. I don't think people have their own opinion.
Okay, so he says, I tried to protect her from those inappropriate questions, except you didn't. I mean, the internet exists, and so does this tape.
It is appropriate to ask Professor Hill anything any member wishes to ask her to plumb the depths of her credibility.
Oh, was that Biden trying to prevent the Senate Judiciary Committee from asking inappropriate questions? That was a strong attempt in protecting her. Really, come on.
I mean, one of the things that I like about this country, and I really do, is that we have a sin, apology, forgiveness cycle that exists. And I think what he and Jill are trying to do is truncate that cycle to sin and forgiveness without the apology. And I don't think it works like that. And I do think that we should have a system, a better system actually, for forgiving people. I think we need that. I think we're going to find that as more and more of people's foibles come out into the open, and that's important, especially with an election coming up. But you have to do that middle part of apologizing.
I totally agree. If it's a genuine apology, people grow, people change, they progress. And there's no point in having apologies unless we're willing to be open-minded and accept people for who they are now, right? But the way that they've handled this and their defensiveness and refusal to take real ownership of what really happened it puts people off. And I don't agree with it, right? You gotta take responsibility.
Can I also say something about like apologizing and forgiveness? I think that as long as what you did didn't put you in jail or death, that forgiveness is subjective, because what often happens is people who are saying, hey, all you victims, you need to learn how to forgive. They're just trying to get like these really privileged positions. So nobody's saying he should never work, he should never have a family. People are saying this mistake was big enough that you shouldn't be the leader of the free world. That's a big deal.
Right.
You know what I mean? Nobody's saying, there's a whole bunch of stuff down the line that you're still able to do.
And when you think of it,
you know what I mean? It's like people who want to be back on TV again. There are a whole bunch of jobs that you can do. And those openings, it's fair for them to go to all of these people who have never done that.
And
so it's like, you know what I mean?
I don't mean to compare Biden to Kavanaugh, but it does remind me of the sense of entitlement that we saw from Kavanaugh during his hearings, right? Where he felt entitled to becoming a Supreme Court justice, as if that job had his name on it since the day he was born. And that sense of entitlement should turn off every American, right? Every American who's had to work hard to get to where they are in their lives. That was a job interview for Kavanaugh. It was not, a moment for him to claim that it was something he's entitled to.
Death penalty hearing.
Right.
And everyone acted like that.
Job interview,
the people who defended him, I mean, I think you said it so perfectly. The people who defended him said, oh, it feels like he's on trial. No, he's not on trial. He's at a job interview, and as an applicant, he made a terrible applicant to be in the highest court in the land. As you said, that doesn't mean he never gets to work again. I think this is tricky when there's someone kind of at a lower level who gets canceled, and we have to wrestle with that and say like, well, what are we saying? Like, should this person never work again? Should they never?
But that never happens. These people still run banks. They are still lawyers. They're still police officers. It's somebody who wants to be on TV again, somebody who wants to be a famous comedian again, somebody who wants to be a singer or a rapper again, somebody who wants to be a Supreme Court justice, somebody who wants to be a president. It's like, hey, maybe you don't get to play in the NBA anymore, but you can still coach Little League. And I know those are two different sports. I'm better than that.
Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.